In 1938, 40,000 pages of handwritten philosophical notes were stuffed into a courier bag and smuggled out of Nazi Germany. They were moved via diplomatic channels, ultimately surviving the war hidden inside this building in Leuven. The author of those notes was Edmund Husserl. He spent his career building a German university into a center of inquiry. Under Nazi racial laws, that same institution aligned with the state and stripped him of his academic privileges. The rescued manuscripts contained the very specific instruction: describe experience exactly as it appears, before any theory decides what it must be. Husserl viewed this act of description as the essential grounding for thought. He believed philosophy could only counter irrationalism by returning to the immediate evidence of consciousness. By the early 20th century, psychology was racing to become a natural science. The prevailing orientation, which Husserl called naturalism, treated the mind as an object to be measured from the outside, cataloging mental states like chemical reactions in a laboratory. Husserl proposed an alternative tool called the epoche. You bracket the assumption that the external world exists independently of your perception. This forces you to examine the specific way a thing shows up for you. This reveals his core concept, intentionality. As this diagram illustrates, consciousness is never a blank inner screen or an empty void. It constantly aims outward. You cannot simply be conscious in a vacuum. You are always conscious of a specific target, a melody, a memory, or a problem you cannot solve. This directedness is not an occasional feature of certain thoughts. It is the inescapable architectural structure of the mind itself. The phenomenologist stops asking what a physical object is made of or what the brain mechanically does when it encounters one. The question is what the precise shape of experiencing that object feels like from the inside. For centuries, medicine and psychology operated on a division proposed by Descartes. The physical body is a machine, and the mind is a ghost piloting it from the inside. Working in Paris in the 1940s, Maurice Merleau-Ponty argued that human existence is synonymous with the body. We experience the world through physical presence rather than observing our limbs as if they were external objects. As evidence, he pointed to phantom limb syndrome. Amputees continue to experience distinct physical sensations and instinctively reach toward objects using legs and arms they have lost. Neurologists pointed to residual nerve signals. Merleau-Ponty offered a different explanation. The phantom limb persists because the person is still projecting toward a world that was physically organized around having that limb. Perception occurs as a continuous physical engagement with our surroundings, an enactment of the body's presence rather than a calculation of nerve data. Husserl's method relied on a total detachment from the world to study it objectively. His students eventually questioned whether such a neutral vantage point could exist at all. Husserl's assistant, Martin Heidegger, argued that humans do not hover above reality in a state of pure reflection. He called the human condition Dasein, meaning being there. Existence is always firmly situated in a specific time, place, and set of relationships. Martin Heidegger described this condition as thrownness. Before you can reflect on anything, you are already using pre-existing tools, speaking an inherited language, and occupying a social role, always moving relentlessly toward an unavoidable death. The central problem is not how consciousness reaches out to touch objects in a vacuum. It is what it means to exist within a finite, inherited situation that you did not choose. Most people avoid facing this reality. Heidegger argued that we conform to das Man, the anonymous they of social habit, living lives based entirely on borrowed expectations. You likely recognize the modern urge to break free, the desire to quit the corporate system, leave those inherited expectations behind, and live a deliberate, authentic life. In 1964, a philosopher named Theodor Adorno published a devastating critique called The Jargon of Authenticity. As this diagram illustrates, Adorno noticed that the act of leaving it all behind has been commodified. Escaping the corporate sphere often means landing squarely in a new, rigid orbit, the intentional life, complete with its own standardized script and approved vocabulary. The feeling of liberation is often an illusion. You move from one set of norms to another, trading one version of Das Man for the next. If the pursuit of authenticity is a trap, it leaves an uncomfortable question. Are we doomed to endlessly cycle through borrowed social scripts? Phenomenology refuses to offer a neat scientific equation or a magical exit from this human cycle. We are left with the legacy of those 40,000 smuggled pages and the deliberate act of documenting personal observation. Philosophical resistance lives in the relentless, lifelong practice of asking what the raw shape of your own experience actually is.